It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
All right, Brian, this next question is from Brandon. Brandon says, my company contributes 8% of my income to a pension fund. I don't put anything into the fund. However, it's tied to the 30-year treasury. How do I count that in my savings rate? We get this all the time from either folks who work for companies that have pensions or maybe government employees. Hey, I've got this pension going on. How do I account for that? And I'm going to ask you two questions, Brian. How do I account for it in my savings rate? And how do I account for it on like my net worth statement? Is it part of my retirement assets or is it not part of my retirement assets? And do you have a tool I could use to maybe track my net worth statement every year?
Yeah, you put a lot in that question. Here's the thing, Brandon, is that pensions are unique is because a lot of times they're just promises. Mm-hmm. Now, look, that I say they're promises because they're basically a promise of a future cash flow at some point in the future. But there is a little asterisk to that is because a lot of times these companies will offer you the ability to roll the value of this pension over to an IRA or to your future employer's 401k or retirement plan. And when they do that, then it's a little different. It's not just a promise. It's actually something that might have an asset that you can do. It depends upon really how your employer has structured it. The first thing we'll answer is that how do you account for this when I'm talking to you guys about your 25% savings rate? Where does that employer funding go? I mean, whether we're talking about 401k match, whether we're talking about pensions and other things, I always tell people, as long as your household income is less than $200,000, you can count that employer contribution as part of your 25%. But however, once your family household income goes over $200,000, I want you excluding employer money and only counting yours in that 25%. And the reason is we've done a lot of research and looked at it, and we've shown it in slides on several shows, is the more your income goes up, the more you separate from all the societal safety nets of Social Security, and all the different protections that happen if you just don't have a lot of resources. Because the more than likely, and I just read an article like on athletes and stuff like that and how they all struggle, even though they have all this money coming in through their life, that we all look at them and go, holy cow, those people make how much per year? Because I think that NHL's, average salary or minimum or something is around $2 million. I saw that when I was looking at it.
NHL?
I think that's where I saw that on a Twitter feed. I mean, it was some crazy thing. Maybe that was just the average for the league.
Crazy.
But then they talked about that like over 50% of these professional athletes when they leave the career struggle financially. So it's a lot of people that have big income come with big responsibilities. So that's why I tell you, don't count employer money, count only your behavior once you're over those levels. But then here's the other thing, net worth. Bo was alluding to, I want you to start tracking what you have coming in. So that's why we do have a net worth tool. If you go to moneyguy.com/resources, you can start tracking. Remember, you can include pensions.
Go to learn.moneyguy.com for the net worth tool.
Yeah, that's right, because it's different. It's not on the free deliverables. It's actually one of the paid tools that we have. But it is one of those things where you can use, if they have a rollover amount or they tell you a value that you have access to, you can put that on your net worth statement, because that's what elevates it beyond the level of it's just a promise. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I'm trying to do some napkin retirement planning. I'm trying to figure out where does this all play on how much assets I need. If I have one of those traditional pensions that doesn't tell me I can roll it over because it is just a promise, what do I account for there? What you need to do then is figure out what you estimate you need in retirement to live off of monthly or annually. Subtract out what the pension will provide you. You'll end up with your net need outside of pension and Social Security. Now you can back into how much you're counting on your assets that you've invested to create for you. That's a back way to calculate it or reverse engineer what you need. I feel like I've loaded Brandon up. Fill in any gaps I left off.
The only thing I was going to say is that is it okay to oversave, right? So let's say that you do have an employer that's putting 8% into a pension for you. Does that mean that you can back down your savings rate and live off of more of your income? Perhaps. Or you could continue to be a financial mutant and save 25% of your income. And what that's going to allow you to do is have more flexibility to make more exciting decisions earlier. If you're saving 25% and you can do that for the next 20 years, perhaps, depending on how your pension pays out, you're geared up for like an age 50 retirement instead of an age 65 retirement. Perhaps you can change jobs at some point in the future where you don't have to earn as much income. You can focus on doing what you want, when you want, the way you want, even inside of the work environment. I think there's nothing wrong. Now, there's a difference in being miserly, right? Don't just eat, ramen and Spam every night. Unless you love ramen and Spam, then, do that. But focus on, man, can I get myself out ahead of the curve? And that's okay. I just see people all the time, especially, I have a lot of friends that are, teachers or in the educational profession, like, I got this pension. I don't need to worry about the saving. It's taken care of. I'm like, you're missing it. No, you can set yourself up so much better by being a financial mutant early, letting those dollars work for you, and your 40, 50, early 60-year-old self is going to thank you for making those decisions instead of taking what I'm going to call sort of the easy road out and relying on the pension.
What you're saying is because, when you're young, you have extra time. You take that as turn that labor into money because you don't have a lot of money. In the future, if you do this right, you can take some of that money and get to own your time again. And that's really what you're going for. That's doing what you want, when you want, and how you want, is you own your life completely because you have enough resources. You get to use your time however you please.